For 43 years, nobody on this entire planet has been able to touch this world record, and what just happened in Stockholm might be the closest anyone has ever come to finally breaking it. Before you keep watching, I need you to understand exactly what is at stake here. This is not just another track and field story. This is a record so old that it is older than almost every single athlete currently racing on the planet. A record so controversial that people still argue about how it was even possible. And right now, in this exact season, there's a real chance it could fall within the next few days. Stick around until the end of this video, because the race that is coming up could change history forever. And there is a detail about the woman who set this record standing in the crowd recently that you are not going to believe. If this is your first time on this channel, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because we cover the biggest stories in track and field before anyone else does, and you do not want to miss what happens next in this saga. All right, let's get into the story. On the 26th of July in 1983, the entire world of track and field stood still. A Czech athlete named Jarmila Kratochvílová stepped onto the track for the women's 800 meters and produced a performance that nobody has been able to replicate since. Her time that day was 1 minute 53.28 seconds. 43 consecutive years have now passed, and not a single woman in the history of the sport has managed to run faster. Not through new training methods, not through advances in shoes and technology, not through any of the talented runners who have come through this event since. This 2-lap world record has somehow survived every single era of the sport that followed it. But here's the part of the story that almost nobody talks about. This world record was, in many ways, a complete accident. In the lead up to the 1983 World Championships in Helsinki, Kratochvílová was finally hitting peak form. She was originally scheduled to run the 200 meters in this particular race, just weeks before the World Championships began. But then, just days before the event, a cramp developed in her leg, and her plans had to change on the spot. Now here is where the story gets strange, and you might be asking yourself the same question I did. Why not just skip the race entirely if she was injured? According to her coaching staff at the time, simply withdrawing could have been viewed very negatively by officials within the Eastern Bloc sport system. So instead of pulling out, she made a decision. She would still compete that day, just in a different event. She switched into the 800 meters instead. And that decision is exactly where she captured lightning in a bottle. She passed through the opening 400 meters in 56.82 seconds, already an aggressive pace. But what happened next is the part that still defies explanation today. She ran every single 100-meter segment after that faster than the one before it, somehow accelerating throughout the second lap when most runners are desperately trying to hold on. Her final 100 meters was run in just 13.7 seconds, meaning her closing 400 meters was almost as fast as her opening 400. She crossed the line in 1 minute 53.28 seconds and shocked the entire world. This record has now stood for so long that it has developed something close to a mythical status. In the entire history of the women's 800 meters, only 3 athletes have ever managed a run under 1 minute 54 seconds, and 2 of those 3 performances came from the early 1980s. That tight cluster of incredibly fast performances in that specific era has led many people across the sport to suspect that state-sponsored doping programs were almost certainly involved during that period. And while several state doping operations from that era have since been confirmed and exposed, none of them have ever been directly linked to Kratochvílová herself. As of right now, this record has stood for 42 years and 11 months, officially older than nearly every single athlete currently competing in the sport. Many people genuinely believe this record will never fall, given the shadow it carries from that era of the sport. But something happening right now in 2026 might be about to change that completely, and you are going to want to hear this. During the indoor season this year, Olympic champion Keely Hodgkinson gave the entire sport a preview of what was coming. She broke the 800-meter indoor world record, running 1 minute 54.87 seconds, a time that nearly took an entire second off the previous indoor mark. It was a stunning all-time performance. But everyone watching knew there was still one number looming over the entire sport, 1 minute 53.28 seconds. The outdoor world record, the one that had not moved in over 4 decades. Then came the outdoor season, and everything changed in a single race in Stockholm. At this year's Diamond League meeting, Hodgkinson decided she was going after the world record directly, passing to the opening 400 meters in under 56 seconds. Right in front of her the entire way was Audrey Werro of Switzerland, who had gone through the opening lap just a fraction ahead of her. Hodgkinson made her move over the final 400 meters, surging hard and genuinely going for history. But then, in the final 100 meters, something happened that nobody expected. Audrey Werro pushed back. She came past Hodgkinson down the home stretch and produced the fastest time the world has seen in over 42 years, 1 minute 53.98 seconds. She became only the third woman in history to ever break 1 minute 54 seconds in this event, and almost unbelievably, it was nearly a 2-second personal best for her. When you go back and watch the tactics of that race, it was executed almost perfectly. She tucked in right behind the pacer through the opening lap. She matched Hodgkinson stride for stride when the move came, and in that final 100 meters, when most athletes start losing form, she simply held hers better than anyone else on the track. That performance instantly pushed her name directly into the world record conversation, and at this point in the season, I would actually consider her the favorite to break this record, ahead of Hodgkinson herself. This chase for the record did not stop there. It led directly into another major world record attempt in Östersund, where Werro ran 1 minute 54.45 seconds. And here is the detail that makes this entire story almost impossible to believe. Kradikvalova herself, the woman who has held this record for over 4 decades, was sitting in the stands watching that race in person. Imagine that moment if the record had actually fallen right there, in front of the very woman who set it, after waiting more than 40 years for someone else to even come close. It did not happen that day. The record survived for a little while longer, but it might not survive much longer than that, because something is set up right now that could finally end this 43-year wait. In just a few days at the Diamond League meeting in Paris, Audrey Werro is set to line up again in the women's 800 meters, and this time she will be joined by Femke Bol of the Netherlands, who has already run under 1 minute 57 seconds twice already this season. I do not think Bol is currently in world record shape herself, but I would genuinely be surprised if she ran slower than 1 minute 55 seconds in this race. There's a real chance she could push the pace into the low 155s. But there is one factor that could make or break this entire attempt, and it has nothing to do with training. It is the weather. Paris has been dealing with brutal heat over the past several days. Temperatures well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Extreme heat like that is usually terrible news for distance events like the 800 meters. But the forecast for race day on Sunday is showing a drop into the high 70s and low 80s, which could actually be close to ideal conditions for a fast 800-meter performance. It has already been a few weeks since Werro last raced the 800 meters directly, but in that time she ran a new European record in the 600 meters, and that performance alone tells you she still has the speed in her legs to seriously threaten this world record, as long as she gets her pacing exactly right. Here is where it gets really interesting if you look at the numbers closely. In her 1 minute 53.98 race, she passed the 400-meter mark in 55.8 seconds, then ran her closing 400 meters in 58.18 seconds. That is a positive split, meaning her first lap was faster than her second. If she can flip that pacing strategy and run a more balanced race, opening with something like 56.2 seconds and then close with a flat 57 seconds, that combination alone would be enough to officially break the world record. Every single season for years now, the women's 800 meters has brought in incredible new talent and serious world record attempts, and yet every single season, this 1 minute 53.28 mark has somehow survived. But out of every season I have watched, 2026 genuinely feels like the best chance this record has ever had of finally falling. And alongside Audrey Werro and Keely Hodgkinson, do not be surprised if Femke Bol makes a real appearance in this race too, either running a shockingly fast time herself or helping set the pace up front for the others to chase. So here's the question I want to leave you with before this race actually happens. Will 2026 finally be the year this 43-year-old world record falls? And if it does happen, who do you think will be the one to actually do it? Make sure you are subscribed before this race happens, because the moment it does, we're going to break down exactly what happened, and trust me, after everything you just heard, you are not going to want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.